I am Gidro Lockhart, professor of Hogwarts Defense Against the Dark Arts. But who can tell me why I came to Marvel World? Oh my goodness, I was still watched by Koichi and Odin at the beginning. How should I break this? Nick Fury. Lohart, this is the deposit, and another batch of emetics, compound decoction, fresh white. Tony. Jarvis, let's start developing the 36th version of the anti-magic armor. Dumbledore. Lockhart, Harry Potter is up to you. Grindelwald. For the greater good, for the future of the wizarding world, let's work together. I, Gidro Lockhart, a wizard who can travel back and forth between the worlds of Harry Potter and Marvel, and the magic of Comitage and Asgard, I am here. Keywords of the novel. Professor Hogwarts mixed in Marvel with no pop-ups, Professor Hogwarts mixed in Marvel with complete download of TXT, and Professor Hogwarts mixed in Marvel with the latest chapters for reading. Chapter 1. I am Professor Hogwarts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. I am Professor Hogwarts. In the autumn of 1992, Hogsmeade residential area. Hogsmeade is the only village in the entire UK that is full of wizards without muggles, and is an ideal place for most wizards to settle. In a house in the residential area, sunlight shines through the windows of the top-floor study and spreads throughout the entire study. At the same time, the cool autumn breeze sneaks into the study through the window, dispelling the stuffiness in the study. In the center of the study, there was a brown wooden desk, and across from it was a handsome wizard with soft and light golden hair, leaning against a chair. Surprisingly, centered around the wizard, 3 magic books float in mid-air, parallel to the wizard's gaze. Across from him, a wine-red magic book floated in mid-air, half opened, and automatically flipped through the pages as the wizard gently waved his wand. And on the cover of the book, it prominently reads, Explanation of the Witcher's Battle Curse. At the innermost part of the study, there are a large number of small magical animal specimens, as if they were spoils of war. Inside the bookshelf on the left wall, there are a large number of magic books, some slightly movable, some somewhat transparent, and a thin mist emanating from the surroundings. Let the entire study emit a mysterious scent. At this moment, Gidro Lockhart, looking at the content of the book, had a flash of thought in his eyes and muttered to himself, Ignite the emotions. It turns out that the core of the wandless spell of the iron spell lies in the instantaneous burst of emotions. Immediately after, as if in an experiment, Lohart placed his wand next to his desk. Adjust the magic frequency, make a strange gesture with your right hand, speak quickly, and loudly say, Armor Protection. In an instant, a yellow light suddenly appeared on the body, disappearing in an instant, and at the same time, a crisp sound came. It can be clearly seen that under the wave of magic, cracks appeared on the chair where Lohart was sitting. Seeing this, Lohart frowned slightly, reached out to pick up his wand, stood up, pointed to the chair, and quickly said, Let's get back to our original state. As if looking back in time, the cracks on the chair gradually disappeared, which was quite strange. Upon seeing this scene, Lockhart nodded in satisfaction and exclaimed with some emotion. Although I have been in this world for almost a month now, I have to praise the magic's magic and convenience. Then, with a light wave of the wand, the bookshelf suddenly opened, and the books floating in mid-air were arranged neatly, automatically entering the bookshelf and returning to their rightful position. Lockhart was sitting on a chair, placing his wand on the desk, silently watching, his eyes revealing contemplation and exploration. It's not appropriate to say that the original body is a waste. With the skilled forgotten curse, he forcefully deceived the entire wizarding world, making all wizards believe that he is a highly skilled and experienced adventurer. However, as soon as he recalled the curse that Lohart had mastered in his memory, his eyebrows couldn't help but show a helpless expression. The battle curse is completely clueless, while the life curse is quite skilled, even far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. For example, Lockhart created his own magic. The Shining of Lockhart. The effect is very simple, it is to use magic to brighten one's face, make one's teeth whiter, especially in the dark, it can become bright and soft, giving people a sense of familiarity. There are also spells that can automatically sign, and even spells that add background music to oneself. All of them were developed by Lockhart himself. He had to admit that he was originally a genius, but he was too eager for quick success and instant benefits. He is truly a student from Hogwarts Ravenclaw College. However, at the thought of fighting, he had to start roast. The opponent used the most basic iron armor curse, which stuttered and even flew away by a second-grade wizard in the future, making them the weak chickens among the weak ones. At the thought of this, a hint of helplessness flashed in Lockhart's eyes. He was fortunate to be able to revive himself for a lifetime and be exposed to the mysterious supernatural power of magic. What surprised him even more was that he had traveled to the familiar world of Harry Potter. However, as soon as he thought about his identity, Lockhart softened his eyebrows, as if trying to dispel the helplessness on his face. During this month of travel, he has already sorted out the memories in his mind. His current identity is Gidro Lockhart, a world-renowned wizard writer, renowned adventurer, and future Hogwarts professor. However, when he thought of the adventurer's identity, a hint of distress flashed in Lockhart's eyes. The so-called adventure is all about the original body stealing the memories of other wizards through a forgetting spell, and then boasting about it as their own, in order to invite fame. What's even more troublesome is that this time he was invited by Dumbledore to join Hogwarts as a professor of defense against the dark arts, and he had to be careful of Dumbledore's temptation. As for the Chamber of Secrets, snake monsters, and so on that Hogwarts will encounter this year, Lockhart doesn't mind. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. We all know the source of the crisis, just make some preparations and we can solve it. Don't worry about anything else. The only concern is Dumbledore's probing, targeting. This Wizarding World White Demon King, known for his skillful planning, inexplicably brought himself to teach at Hogwarts. Maybe you don't have any ideas. Lockhart is not foolish. Although the Wizarding World is rumored, the position of Hogwarts' defense against the dark arts professor has been cursed by mysterious people. But the reason why rumors are rumors is that many wizards do leave every year, but most of them also suffer minor injuries, and the risk of death is rare. Otherwise, how could Genshin have the courage to take on the position of professor and confidently let the prophet daily promote it? All he wanted was to make a profit and make his reputation and resume more glorious. After achieving the goal, leave. To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that Lockhart had accepted Dumbledore's invitation before his travels, he refused long ago. However, at the thought of the library in Hogwarts, a hint of fanaticism rose in Lockhart's eyes. During this month, although he purchased a large number of magic books, he increasingly felt the narrowness and backwardness of the wizarding world, and his narrow-mindedness deeply rooted in people's hearts. The profound curse is almost impossible to see on the market. The books on the market are all ordinary magic books, and at most, they only delve deeper into a single spell. If you want to come into contact with powerful, eerie, and even mysterious curses, you are not a pure-blood family, and you have not signed an effective contract with the other party, so you cannot come into contact with them at all. However, Lockhart himself is a mixed-race wizard, and his family does not have a strong background like a pure-blood family. Only Hogwarts contains magical books that have been cherished for centuries. Whether it's life spells, battle spells, even dark magic, or even more bizarre taboo wizard knowledge, they all involve. More importantly, there are very few or even almost no restrictions on professors. At this moment, Lockhart, who was somewhat obsessed with magic, felt an itch in his heart, and even his eyes turned red. The more he is exposed to magic, the more he feels the wonder, mystery of magic. Especially when feeling the slow flow of magic in one's body, one can easily resonate with the elements of heaven and earth, ignite flames, gather sand into stones, and even reconstruct objects, reversing life. He became even more fanatical. In his past life, he was an ordinary person with a lifespan of only 100 years, and he was still a university professor with only the ability to bind chickens. How fortunate that he was to encounter magic in this life. With the wonder of magic, not to mention extending his lifespan, it can only give him powerful power, enough to make him addicted to it. Not to mention, as a university professor and researcher, the pursuit of truth is ingrained in one's bones. Interpret the entire world from a magical perspective. Let him feel joy, obsession, and fanaticism from the bottom of his heart. As for the risks that may be faced in the future, since he has made a choice, he will bear the corresponding responsibility. Moreover, he is not without a way to break the deadlock. As soon as he thought of this, Lohart exclaimed softly in his heart. System. Newcomer's new book, seeking support from recommended votes. End of this chapter. How to break the attention of Odin and Guyi at the beginning of chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How to break the attention of Odin and Guyi at the beginning of chapter 2. Name. Gidro Lockhart, Constitution. 14 Magic Value. 910/1024 Mastery Curse. Lockhart's Shining, Fully Automatic Signature Float Curse, Fluorescent Curse, Unlock Curse, Transformation Curse, Disarm Curse, Ironclad Curse. Reputation Value. 104552, Character Recognition, Molly Weasley, 70 out of 100, and Bel Duru, 40 out of 100, own items. Seeing the faint blue light before his eyes, Lohart's mouth slightly curved. As a traveler, he naturally has his own golden finger, which he refers to as the reputation lottery system. The biggest function is to draw prizes based on reputation values. The subject of the lottery is a person who has a close relationship or high recognition with him. The higher the level of recognition, the easier it is to obtain the opponent's most valuable spells, abilities, and even talents. This is also why he has confidence in facing Dumbledore. It is also his capital to enhance his strength and pursue truth. It is also his trump card for transforming a narrow, backward, and class-fixed wizarding world. He is very fortunate that his predecessor was a well-known writer with a large number of fans. The identity of a well-known writer has earned him a lot of reputation, while fans have given him a large number of potential lottery recipients. Although most of his fans are family wizards, and even the vast majority are ordinary witches, mastering basic spells. But with this month, he kept going in and out of public places, meeting fans, and consuming a lot of reputation to participate in lucky draws. Finally, the most basic spells that a wizard should master have been mastered through the system, leaving the realm of verbal strength. At least there will be no famous scene of being beaten up by a second-grade wizard. The only regret is that among his fan base, there are very few combat wizards in Aurora from the Ministry of Magic, and there are almost no powerful ones. In this newly traveled month, it is even more difficult to encounter. How can we talk about a lottery? However, with his continuous research and scientific practice over the past month, he has also mastered some combat spells. He found that his talent in magic was not inferior to his original self, and even stronger. Or rather, this is the result of the fusion of two souls. And this is not Rohat's greatest confidence in facing future difficulties. His confidence lies in Lohart focused his vision system on the lower right corner of the system panel, which read: The countdown to the world shuttle is 240 minutes, please prepare for the shuttle. His greatest confidence lies in the system's world shuttle function. Specifically, every other month, he will automatically travel through another world and stay there for a month. Then he returned to the world of Harry Potter. The only regret that makes Lohart unique is the system can only traverse between two worlds and cannot allow itself to traverse other worlds. That is to say, he can shuttle from the Harry Potter world to the B world, and after staying for a month, he will automatically return to the Harry Potter world from the B world. Then, after staying in the Harry Potter world for a full month, he returned to the B world. Such a cycle, such a state. Lohart had to wonder if this system was evading something, or why it would jump back and forth between two worlds for no reason. However, the only thing that made Lockhart feel good was after shuttling to another world, time will not change at all. From which second you cross, then from which second you will return. Both worlds are like this. In this way, he can be given sufficient time to study magic and improve his level of magic. If he gains more opportunities in another world and significantly enhances his combat power, it will make him more confident in facing the future difficulties of Dumbledore. This is Lohart's final trump card. He has been in the Harry Potter world for almost a month now, and in just 4 hours, he will automatically shuttle to another world. This is also what he has been looking forward to. At night, at the home of Gidro Lockhart. Countdown to 3 minutes from the world shuttle, please prepare for the shuttle. Lohart looked at the light curtain that appeared before him, holding his magic suitcase and gripping his wand, waiting quietly. Time passes by minute by second, and the countdown is fast. 3 minutes are about to end. The world shuttle is about to begin, please prepare yourself, countdown to world shuttle 3, 2, 1. The first world shuttle begins, anchoring the new world, anchoring in progress, open up a world shuttle channel, note. Exploring a large amount of energy fluctuations can reduce some energy loss. May I ask if this is the case? In automatic selection, based on inference, it can save some energy, enhance energy reserves, provide better services for the host, and not bring additional negative impacts to the host, allowing for arrival. We are about to shuttle through the world, warning. After staying in this world for 30 days, the soul will gradually imprint the imprint of this world. It is necessary to leave this world in a timely manner to avoid the invasion of the world atmosphere. In 2011, outside a small town in New Mexico, in the United States, at night. A renovated black van is driving forward in the wilderness outside the town. Jane Foster sat in the car, holding a camera and constantly looked out the window, as if she had noticed an aurora in the sky not far away. She quickly shouted to Daisy Lewis, who was driving next to her, "It's the aurora, hurry up, Daisy. Hurry up, Daisy, go, go, go." Eric Selvig, sitting at the back, looked at the aurora not far away in surprise, as if he knew the rarity of its appearance, and began to voice his urging. "Daisy, hurry up, maybe you and your paper will meet soon." After hearing this, Daisy's face lit up with joy. She immediately stepped on the gas pedal, grabbed the steering wheel, and quickly headed towards the aurora. At this moment, Lohart's eyes darkened and he suddenly found himself appearing in a colorful energy channel, constantly falling down. He felt a bit scared and instinctively shouted loudly. "Ah, ah." Immediately, I realized that I had not been affected at all, but rather kept descending like taking an elevator. So I quickly calmed down and lifted the magic suitcase in my left hand, gripping the wand in my right hand. The transmission process of secretly cursing the system is unreliable. Immediately after, Lockhart's face changed and he realized unexpectedly, a tall and handsome blonde man appeared not far away. This made him wary and raised his wand in his hand, mobilizing the magic within his body, as if the opponent was about to start attacking whenever there was a movement. He has some doubts. The other party had no energy fluctuations throughout, as if they were a muggle. But this is absolutely impossible, how could ordinary muggles appear here? The other party, like him, is also a traveler, right? What a broken system. Can the world shuttle channels still be shared? Lockhart secretly complained and became more alert. This is not the moment when a fellow villager meets a fellow villager, tears streaming down their faces. If it's a traveler, it's probably better to start first and suffer later. After all, how do you divide the benefits between two travelers in one world? However, Lockhart felt that the face of the blonde man not far away was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Furthermore, the scene of this teleportation becomes more familiar as you watch it. Without enough time to think deeply, Lohart felt the teleportation suddenly pause. He landed safely on the ground, while the blonde man next to him seemed unlucky. During the landing, he seemed to have been hit by a car and was knocked unconscious. This made Lockhart show a slight smile on his face, very grateful that he was not this unlucky guy. However, seeing this scene, Lohart felt even more familiar with it, so he tightly held his wand and silently watched, constantly searching for memories in his mind. After the car suddenly brakes, a middle-aged man and two young women come down. The three of them seem to be a bit panicked because they hit someone while driving. Immediately after, Lockhart heard the other party shouting loudly, "Jane, legally speaking, it's all your fault. Don't talk about this, Daisy, hurry up and get the medicine box." Quickly, the sturdy blonde man who had been knocked unconscious by the car woke up quickly, stood up and looked around, shouting loudly, "Hammer, hammer, my Meyer Neil." Then he looked up and shouted, "Hemdal, I know you're watching. Hurry up and send me back." Seeing the scene before him and hearing the blonde man shouting, Lohart instantly knew in which world he was in. Jane, Hemdal, Mjolnir, Hammer, besides Marvel world, where else can it be? Lockhart's face changed and he cursed inwardly. How did you get into a high-risk world like Marvel and even collide with the plot of Thor 1? It's troublesome now. In this scene, not only is God King Odin watching, but Master Guyi will definitely not forget to pay attention. After all, the son of Odin, the father of the gods, came to earth, who would ignore it? If Odin and Guyi mage both pay attention at the beginning, how can we break it? Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Thor unable to fury out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The Thor unable to fury out. At the same time, in the distant realm of Asgard. Standing on the Rainbow Bridge, Heldam looked at the opening of the teleportation channel and frowned slightly, then said in a deep voice to Odin, the father of the gods next to him. Divine King, Rainbow Bridge consumes a significant increase in energy due to the unexpected appearance of other humans in Thor's teleportation channel. How can we handle this? Odin gazed at the colorful teleportation channel constructed by the Rainbow Bridge, as if he could see the newly appeared Lockhart, holding a wand and very alert, frowning slightly. Perhaps the insects that appeared at this moment were a bit eye-catching, so the gun of the Eternal O'Neill in his hand began to emit a faint golden light, and Heldam felt a breathtaking aura rushing towards him. Suddenly, a emerald green light suddenly appeared, floating in front of Odin, constantly bouncing slightly, as if conveying some message. Heldam stared closely at the green light, with a hint of vigilance in his eyes. He held the Rainbow Bridge sword in his hand, as if he wanted to attack. Then he suddenly sensed that the eternal spear was beginning to fall silent, and then, with a faint smile on the face of the god King Odin, he said to him, "Don't worry about this human, someone will handle it." After speaking, he turned around and left. Loki beside him was somewhat puzzled about his father's conversation with Heldam, but he didn't think much and followed his father Odin away from the Rainbow Bridge. Faced with Guyi or Odin's secret peeping, a hint of sadness flashed in Lockhart's eyes, and his thoughts kept spinning as he quickly thought of a solution. My identity from a different world must have been exposed. Even if Odin doesn't know this, Koichi definitely knows it. However, not directly taking action now indicates that the Supreme Master still has a certain tolerance. And now, what he needs to do the most is the contemplation revealed in Lockhart's eyes constantly improved the plans that came to mind. Meanwhile, Professor Eric carefully examined the blond man wearing an emerald green robe in front of him. Although I envy his handsome appearance, this outfit doesn't look like a modern person no matter what. He couldn't help but feel surprised. But without much time to think, he quickly approached and asked nervously, "Who are you? You just saw this scene, it was completely unexpected." Lohart looked at Eric Selvig, who was a bit nervous in front of him, his mouth curled up, revealing his pure white teeth and a gentle smile. He waved his wand lightly in secret. The radiance of Lohart. In an instant, Eric's eyes lit up and he felt the face of Lockhart in front of him very friendly. As if like an old friend whom I haven't seen for many years. Immediately after, Lockhart lightly touched his left shoulder with his right hand, bent slightly, and performed a standard wizard etiquette. He asked elegantly and calmly, "Hello, I am Gideon Lockhart. Sir Merlin third-class medal recipient, honorary member of the Anti-Dark Arts Alliance, professor of Hogwarts Dark Arts Defense Course. Due to an unexpected space magic incident, I accidentally wandered to your place. May I ask where I am now?" At the same time, Lockhart raised his wand slightly and said, "Bright and bright." In an instant, a light ball emerged in mid-air, emitting a soft white light that illuminated the nearby area. Jane, Daisy, and Eric saw this scene and opened their mouths slightly in surprise. "You." Upon seeing it, Thor next to him seemed to have thought of something. He ran towards Lohart with a somewhat savage tone, commanding loudly. "Mage of Midgard, I am Thor Odinson, son of Odin. I command you to take me back to Asgard." Lockhart frowned slightly when he heard Thor's overbearing tone, his face turning ugly, and a hint of anger rose in his heart, but he quickly calmed down. The other party is the son of Odin and has not yet become a true Thor. Naturally, their attitude is arrogant and they do not disregard ordinary people. And Thor's tone of treating him as a servant's command, although it made him feel angry. However, considering the other party's identity can be tricky, and one cannot directly resort to violence. One can only give them a lesson. Although Odin may be watching now, as long as it doesn't endanger his life, he shouldn't take action. Besides, if he doesn't teach a lesson, the other party will really treat him as a servant. As his thoughts turned, Lohart picked up his wand and pointed at Thor, "Imprison it quickly." In an instant, a white halo emanated from the top of the wand, quickly wrapping around Thor's body as if bound, controlling Thor's movements. Thor across from him seemed to feel imprisoned, motionless, and directly cursed. "Humans, report your name. You are disrespectful to the future masters of the 9 kingdoms. Your cunning is more cunning than the ogre's worm." Wu, silent. Before Thor could finish cursing, Lockhart cast a silent spell, allowing Thor to keep opening his mouth, but no sound came. When there was anger, one couldn't vent it, when there was anger, one couldn't vent it. Thor's face turned red as if he had suffered such a big loss for the first time. Seeing this, a faint smile floated on Lohart's face, and he liked the scene of the other person being unable to vent their anger and unable to resist. The more angry Thor is, the happier Lohart becomes. He is the one who seeks revenge and complains. He can't be a ruthless subordinate, but if he doesn't teach a lesson, he won't be Lohart anymore. Immediately, she turned her head and looked at Jane and Daisy, who were surprised and mixed with fear, waving their wands lightly and circling around. A pale white halo appeared in the air, gradually spreading and soothing their souls. Revealing his pure white teeth, he said gently, "All right, let's start the topic just now." Jane, Daisy, and Eric looked around at the faint white light, surprised to find that their hearts had calmed down a lot, and even a faint joy appeared. Let them feel some surprise. After hearing what Lockhart was saying in front of her, Daisy immediately exclaimed, "Is this magic?" Seeing the surprised voice of the little girl in front of him, Lohart nodded with a smile and said lightly, "That's right, it's magic. May I ask where this is?" After Eric heard it, he was about to reply when he heard Daisy excitedly chattering and asking. "This is New Mexico, Mr. Magician. How do you call it? Where do you come from? Can I learn magic?" Seeing the excited Daisy, a large number of questions popped out of her mouth. Lockhart quickly picked up his wand and made a silent gesture. After Daisy saw it, she slowly stopped asking with some regret. Upon seeing this, Professor Eric quickly stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "Mr. Wizard, Daisy was a bit too excited just now. Please forgive me." Then, pointing to the 3 of them, he introduced himself, "My name is Eric Selvig, and these 2 next to me are my students, Jane Foster and Daisy Lewis. This is the United States, New Mexico region. It takes about 13 kilometers to reach the nearest town. You can choose to take our car to the town and then make arrangements." Upon hearing this, Lohart nodded and said, "Okay, Mr. Eric, you can call me Mr. Lohart or Professor Lohart. As he spoke, Lockhart waved his wand lightly and a small piece of gold bar floated in front of everyone, floating towards Eric's hand. He whispered, "This is your reward, I trouble you for this journey." Seeing the gold bar in his hand, Eric reached out and instinctively pinched it. Based on his past experience, he judged that the true probability was over 80%, so he quickly said, "No need, it's too expensive, Professor Lockhart. I can't use so much money." Upon hearing Eric's reply, Lockhart had a faint smile on his face and said, "It's okay. For us wizards, gold bars are not precious. If you feel valuable, you can give me some of your currency. I think I may need it in the future." Speaking, Lohart blinked. Before Eric could reply, the two of them smiled and said to Jane and Daisy, "All right, let's go back to the town now. I like places with a civilized atmosphere." Speaking, he gently waved his hand at Eric, indicating that he could start. Eric let out a soft sigh and put away the gold bar in his hand. He wasn't as prone to being a flower addict as his student Daisy. Encountering such a wizard with extraordinary means, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. However, after our previous communication, this wizard should be considered a more polite and principled positive figure. Otherwise, I will not patiently communicate with myself and return the gold bar as a reward. Thinking about it, he took Lockhart towards their car. Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. How to Survive Under the Eyes of One Big Boss. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. How to Survive Under the Eyes of One Big Boss. Looking ahead at Eric, who was leading the way, and then at Thor, who was imprisoned by his own spell. Feeling the other person's intent to kill. With a light smile, Lohart waved his wand lightly and said, "You got him, Leviosa." A floating spell lifted the imprisoned Thor, the god of thunder. Then he followed Eric onto the car, and Jane, Daisy, and others saw it without asking. Alternatively, they may feel a hint of guilt for driving into someone just now, or they may be curious about Thor's identity. And Lockhart naturally won't explain too much. After everyone got in the car, Eric drove, Lockhart sat in the front seat, Thor and Jane, and Daisy sat in the back. After stepping on the accelerator and igniting the engine, the car slowly drove towards the direction of the town. Sitting in the car, Lockhart breathed a light sigh. He was under a lot of psychological pressure just now. He dared to be 10,000% certain that Odin and Guyi would definitely pay attention to him. All his actions just now were to establish a persona. "I declare that I am harmless to humans and animals, but only because I accidentally arrived at Marvel World." This is the optimal solution he came up with. Faced with the unknown, if it's not a direct action, then think about probing information. And he can also use this to establish a scholar and professor image as a white wizard. After all, no matter in which world, scholars and professors should be positive figures in the eyes of the public. Well, his imitation target is Dumbledore. So even in the face of Thor's curse, it was just a small lesson, not a harsh one. I hope to temporarily dispel the doubts of Guyi or Odin. Otherwise, if he had behaved inappropriately or exhibited extremely evil behavior just now. Unable to determine, a thunderbolt suddenly appeared in the sky and struck at him, or alternatively, a sparking portal appeared in front of him, and several mages emerged. Under the banner of annihilating the invader, kill him. That Lockhart can't even cry if he wants to. Otherwise, for those who have witnessed him, although he will not directly silence. But it's definitely a way to absorb divine energy, search for intelligence, and then send a set of forgetting curse packages. Believe in his proficiency, he will never let anyone detect anything unusual. At most, these muggles will experience migraines, so he doesn't care. His moral level is very flexible. Now, since Pingen got on the car, in a sense, Guyi or Odin should be allowed to exist. This naturally made Lohart take a light breath and relax a little. However, acting requires continuous performance, and before he reaches a certain level of strength, he still needs to work hard to maintain his current character. Professor Lockhart, I just heard you introduce yourself as a professor at Hogwarts, and upon hearing this, I immediately feel that you are knowledgeable. However, I don't seem to have heard of this school before. Can you give me a brief introduction? Eric, who was driving, handed a bottle of mineral water to Lockhart and asked curiously. After taking it over, Lohart cautiously released a toxin detection magic in secret. Upon discovering that there was nothing unusual, he unscrewed the bottle cap, took a light sip, and said calmly. Hogwarts, this is our own school for wizards, specializing in training young wizards, while I am a professor specializing in defending against dark magic. Lockhart spoke with some pride and continued, black magic is a very evil and deadly magic. Upon hearing this, Jane asked with some envy, Professor Lockhart, do you think we can learn magic? Upon hearing this, Lohart smiled and shook his head, saying calmly, learning magic requires talent and bloodline. 99.9% of people are muggles, unable to learn magic, and even unaware of the existence of wizards. As if anticipating their confusion, Lohart continued, muggles refer to people without magical talent, which is a common term used by wizards. Upon hearing this, Jane, Daisy, and Eric all showed regretful expressions on their faces, while Thor beside them snorted coldly, but no sound came. Well, the silent spell still hasn't been lifted. After chatting for a while, Daisy took out a portion of bread and a few bags of snacks, and kindly handed them to Lockhart sitting in front. Professor Lockhart, this is my favorite snack. It tastes good, you can try it. After speaking, Daisy tore open a bag of potato chips and handed it to Lockhart. Upon seeing this, Lockhart smiled and reached out to taste a piece. He nodded slightly and exclaimed in admiration, the taste is very delicious. Thank you, Miss Daisy, for sharing. Surprisingly, Miss Daisy has shared it all, so let me also share some of our wizard snacks. As he spoke, Lohart lightly waved his wand and a large variety of snacks floated out of the space bag. There are candies shimmering with blue light, chocolates emitting flames, various colored strange flavored beans, and chocolate frogs in the shape of frogs, and so on. As the snacks floated in front of everyone, Lockhart introduced, this is a strange flavor bean. After eating it, various strange flavors will randomly appear. This is moonlight milk candy, and after eating it, the eyes will emit blue light. There are also chocolate frogs, crucible cakes, dragon milk cheese, and so on. You can all try it, the taste is good. As he spoke, Lohart looked at Thor, who was imprisoned behind him, for a moment, and whispered, Mr. Thor, I don't know where Asgard is. However, I can unlock the magic now, but you must promise not to cause trouble again, otherwise don't blame me for being imprisoned again. If you agree, just nod. After calming down, Thor heard it and thought for a moment before nodding helplessly. Upon seeing this, Lohart held his wand and cast a counter spell on Thor. Soon, Thor found himself able to move again and made a sound, with a hint of joy in his eyes. Immediately after, as if thinking of something, he let out a cold snort at Lockhart, but without any action. Jane and Daisy next to her did not pay much attention to Thor's behavior, and they are now quite interested in tasting magical snacks. Daisy had just eaten a piece of moonlight milk candy when she noticed that her eyes were emitting blue light, which was very interesting, so she was quite interested in tasting the strange flavored beans. Just tasted one, my face changed slightly and turned a little red. I quickly opened my mouth and said, it's so spicy, so spicy. Speaking, he picked up the mineral water next to him and took a big sip. After seeing it, Jane smiled. She had just eaten several strange flavored beans in a row, and found that they had beef flavor, chicken flavor, and an indescribable taste. In short, the taste was decent. Their actions made Thor and Eric hesitate for a moment, and they also began to taste the magical snacks shared by Lockhart. After all, enjoying delicious food is a commonality among all carbon-based organisms. For a moment, the whole car was filled with laughter and joy, and the atmosphere became much more harmonious. Even Thor didn't show any coldness towards Lohart anymore. In the small town of New Mexico, in the rented house of Eric and Jane, everyone sat on the sofa in the living room. Daisy brought a glass of water and kindly handed it to Gideon Lockhart, who was sitting on the sofa. Curiously, she asked, "Professor Lockhart, can you tell me more about your adventure?" Professor Jane and Professor Selvig beside her also perked up their ears, their eyes filled with curiosity. Although Thor's eyes were full of disdain, he patiently listened. He is just an ordinary person now and doesn't know what he should do, although he thinks this wizard is not a big deal. But storytelling is very skilled. Seeing this, the corner of Lohart's mouth slightly curled up. Taking a sip of water from the cup, he said calmly, "I never hesitate to share my adventure experiences with others." As he spoke, he began to share his experience of fighting the ghoul, telling it vividly and captivating. Well, it's him stealing the memories of other wizards through a memory curse. However, just slightly exaggerated, rendering it more evil. This, Lockhart, is easy to catch. After all, the world-renowned writers of all wizards are not to be boasted about. Well, while talking, a thought suddenly came to my mind. If you want to write another book yourself, just call it Lohart, Surviving in a Different World. As soon as the thought turned and the corner of my mouth lifted, I sank it into my heart and continued to share my experience with Eric and others. Through gentle smiles, friendly communication, magical snacks, and wonderful magic. After completing a complete set of combination punches, the relationship with the crowd has significantly elevated to a higher level. Including Thor, the original hostility has been resolved a lot. Well, upon seeing this scene, Guyi would probably think that I am an experienced and righteous white wizard. It's best to have a good impression. Later, he can learn the magic of camouflage. He is quite interested in the magic of Marvel World. It seems to have a completely different development direction from Harry Potter. As his thoughts turned, Lohart's voice slightly increased as he explained, as if revealing a hint of excitement. Of course, it's just a thought. Brushing your face can gain knowledge, but Lohart doesn't believe it. Trading is the best means. Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Magical Magic. Surprise Lockhart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Magical Magic. Surprise Lockhart. After talking for a while, Lohart pretended to need a break and returned to his room. After entering his room, he quickly closed his door. Quickly walked to the bedside, opened his magical suitcase, crawled into it, and cast a phantom spell to conceal the trail of the suitcase. Well, this is the magic suitcase he specially prepared for this world shuttle. It has a lot of space and value. Although the Ministry of Magic does not allow sales, he still obtains them through black market means. Although he had invested thousands of gold coins, he was quite satisfied with the practicality of the magic suitcase. Inside, he filled his reserve of magic books, potions, and even dark magic items. After entering the magic suitcase, Lockhart walked down the stairs and entered his own room. Looking at the spacious space, Lockhart nodded in satisfaction and quickly walked to the desk on the left. He watched as a platypus-shaped creature placed in a small cage on the desk, with its snow-white body sniffing. My eyes were filled with surprises. The system actually allows carrying life forms for shuttle. This was greatly beyond his expectations, as the system was likely to allow for the teleportation of dead objects. But for living creatures, he can't be sure. So, he specifically bought a sniffer as an experimental object to see if the system allows items to be carried after the world shuttles. Now it seems that the system allows a wide range. This filled Lockhart's heart with surprise, allowing life to shuttle back and forth, so that there would be more operations to follow. a picture came to his mind that when he faced the enemy in the future, he would open the box and release various magical animals such as fire dragons, thunder-winged birds, etc. The excitement in his heart couldn't be suppressed at the thought of this. Even witches are also living beings. The thought had just flashed, and Lohart sank it deep in his heart. The world that the system shuttles through was actually Marvel World, which greatly surprised him. Marvel World is much more dangerous than Harry Potter. Although it is filled with a lot of opportunities, the constant level of catastrophic events makes Lohart scratching his head. With his small physique, if he is involved in it, I'm afraid he might be played with by mistake. So he urgently needs to improve his strength now. And now, the simplest way is to conduct a reputation lottery for Thor, the god of thunder. If one could obtain Thor's powerful thunder power, they would have more than enough self-protection in the Marvel world, and can also roam freely in the Harry Potter world. At the thought of this, a hint of warmth flashed in Lockhart's eyes. Immediately, the light call system. Name: Gidro Lockhart, Constitution. 14 Magic Value. 970/1024 Mastery Curse. Lockhart's Shining, Fully Automatic Signature Float Curse, Fluorescent Curse, Unlock Curse, Transformation Curse, Disarm Curse, Ironclad Curse. Reputation Value 104552. Character Recognition. Harry Potter World. Molly Weasley, 70/100, Belle Drucker, 40/100, Marvel World. Jane Foster, 30/100, Thor Odinson, 10/100, Daisy Own Items Wand, Magic Box. Lohart set his gaze on the light gray name, with a thought flashing in his eyes. Thor Odinson, 10 out of 100, at present, Thor's recognition of himself is relatively low, which is not what Lockhart expected. After all, the long imprisonment and a silent curse just now, no matter who it is, his heart is definitely angry. Although communication and sharing of food have reduced a lot of hostility, it definitely cannot rise to the level of favorability. Thor doesn't have extreme hatred towards himself, he already has a good personality. Of course, if such a thing happens again, Lohart will still choose to offer Thor the same package. Just now, Thor was like a child, willful, reckless, and unrestrained, even cursing his own father before. Having received such recognition from Thor, Lohart believed he couldn't do it. So, first suppress his arrogance, and when he needs help later on, there will naturally be an opportunity to increase his recognition. In short, he is not in a hurry. As long as the mind does not slide, there are always more methods than problems. Immediately, Lohart pondered his plan and made some slight modifications, feeling that there were no major issues. Continue reading the book Dark Forces. A Guide to Self-Defense, in the study. Meanwhile, practice the magic spell. Although it is possible to quickly enhance magical abilities through the system, only by mastering the corresponding magical knowledge and understanding the essence of magic spells can one truly master them. As I continued to practice the surrender curse, I watched as a dazzling red light emanated from my eyes. Lohart felt more and more that something was wrong. Or, to put it another way, something unusual was discovered at the beginning, but without deep reflection. He discovered that the power of the surrender curse has increased by about 3 times. Oh my goodness, the same magic is not as strong in the world of Harry Potter, and it's so easy to use. Even the duration of the disarming spell has been extended by 3 seconds. What does this mean? After staying for 3 seconds, he can freely control the spell to attack enemies from all directions. Only powerful wizards can achieve this in Harry Potter. In the Marvel world, wizards like him can even reach such a level. Is it difficult or not? Marvel world is magic, a blessed land for wizards. Alternatively, the Harry Potter world has imposed restrictions on magic. After deep contemplation and proposing several conjectures, Lohart kept them to his heart. It's useless to think too much now. Let's go back to the world of Harry Potter and study it slowly. He needs to improve his strength now and survive under the hands of the Destroyer. Fighting alongside Thor is the best way to gain his recognition. Although it's a bit risky, Lockhart is willing to take a gamble. The next day, in the morning, Lockhart woke up from bed and casually cast a spell to hide the suitcase. Then he opened the door and slowly walked down the stairs. Looking at the empty and even cluttered living room, I raised an eyebrow. It seems after he left last night, this group of people were not idle. Immediately, with a flick of his wand, the clutter in the living room suddenly floated into mid-air and then moved in an orderly manner, returning to his own position. Blankets are neatly stacked on the sofa, waste paper is actively placed in the trash can, unfinished cups float towards the bathroom, poured into the sink, and then return to the wooden table. For a moment, the entire living room made a tinkling sound. Although the sound was not loud, it also made some people who were deeply asleep start to wake up. Professor Selvig woke up like this, attracted by the sound, walked out of the room and saw the living room below automatically cleaning up debris. He opened his mouth in surprise and let out a scream of surprise. Amazing, it's really amazing. In his impression, the magician should be gathering fireballs, attracting thunder, and even summoning demons. And now this scene, somewhat beyond his imagination, made him feel envious. Convenient, it's really too convenient. Well, under a spell, there's no need to do any household chores, it's just the ability that an old man like him dreams of. Quickly, all the clutter was cleared, and he saw Lockhart waving his wand and drawing several circles in a row, reciting a spell. Immediately after, a silver-white light spread from the top of Lockhart's wand towards all sides. He saw with his own eyes that as the white light spread, all the stains were completely new, as if they had never appeared before. Then he saw Lockhart looking up at him and waving. Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Mysterious Runes. Thor's Hammer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Mysterious Runes. Thor's Hammer. Oh my goodness, Professor Lockhart, I didn't expect the food made with magic to taste so good. Sitting at the dining table, Lohart smiled when he heard Daisy's flattery from across the street. Although the original body may seem useless in combat, it leads a very delicate life. Not to mention anything else, he is very proficient in mastering life spells, even creating his own spells. For Lockhart, who possesses original memory, with a little proficiency, he can quickly master it. Laugh, we wizards rarely cook by ourselves, they all use magic spells. So the taste may be better. At this point, Lockhart shifted the topic and looked at Thor, who was eating breakfast with a heavy head, and asked with a smile, Mr. Thor, I heard you say you're from Asgard yesterday. Do you know if Asgard has magic? After hearing this, Thor patted his chest and proudly said. Lohart, we Asgard lead the 9 realms and naturally possess profound magic. My mother, Queen Freyja, is the first mage in the 9 realms. Speaking of which, Thor's mood suddenly became low. Perhaps it is because I recall being expelled by my father and finding it difficult to see my mother again, feeling sad. Seeing this, Lockhart no longer extended the topic. He just left a seed and waited for it to explode later. About Frederick is the first mage in the 9 realms, so Lockhart just laughed. Is this not taking Master Guyi seriously? Immediately, we had a brief conversation about magic with Eric and others. And Jane next to her seemed to feel the sadness of Thor's emotions and began to slowly comfort her. After breakfast, Lockhart changed into his usual attire, stood in front of the door, said a few words to Eric and others, then opened the door and left. After entering the small town, I found a few passers-by and inquired about the nearest real estate agent. After learning the information, go straight ahead. As a wizard, he needs an independent space, especially when practicing magic, he cannot always be inside the magic suitcase. If something is damaged, it would be very troublesome. He needs to rent a house and practice inside the house. The interior space of the magic suitcase is only for emergency living. After finding a real estate agent, offering their conditions, leaving their contact information, they turned around and left. Well, yesterday he obtained some cash and mobile phones from Eric through trading. As for driver's licenses, ID cards, and so on. Lohart looked at a leather bag around his waist and smiled a little. A document with a confusing spell, no matter which muggle sees it, will believe it as true. Even if this is blank. Then, I went to a nearby bar, ordered a glass of water, and slowly sat in the seat next to the window, waiting for the sound in my ear. As a wizard who pursues truth, he never starts drinking. Quickly, sounds came from within my ears. Smith, your tolerance for alcohol is even smaller than ants. Yesterday, you poured 3 glasses, which is really embarrassing for us. Yesterday was an accident, today let's compare and see who drank less. Duras, did you hear that? A satellite has crashed to the east of the town, and many people have gone to watch. What satellite? Did you hear me wrong? I remember someone said there was a hammer. Really? What's so unusual about hammers? I have a lot of hammers at home. I'll tell you, that hammer is not ordinary. Lockhart instantly locked onto the keyword hammer from the chaotic sound and quickly saw the 2 white men in leather pants being discussed. My eyes lit up. He came to the bar for a purpose. Immediately, he lightly sipped the water in his glass, stood up, and shouted to the bar counter attendant not far away, "Bring 2 bottles of whiskey to this table." Speaking, he pointed to the white man he had just talked to. After hearing this, the 2 looked at Lockhart with some confusion. Who is this person? Faced with the confusion in their eyes, Hart smiled and explained, "These 2 bottles of whiskey are my treat for both of you. There's nothing else interesting, I'd like to get to know you both more about the hammer you just talked about. Can you tell me exactly where it is located?" Quickly, through 2 bottles of whiskey, Lockhart obtained accurate information about the hammer. After a slight greeting, he turned around and walked towards the outside of the bar. To the east of the town of New Mexico, where the hammer of thunder fell. A large number of people gathered over there, clamoring and their voices boiling. Lohart looked at the huge crater that appeared not far away and sighed slightly. The power of Thor's hammer is not weak. Just by falling, it creates a meteorite crater out of thin air. If it were him, he might need to unleash most of his magic and cast the transformation curse to achieve such an effect. Then, stroll towards the depression. Entering the crowd, with his handsome appearance, he quickly attracted the attention of many girls and women. However, it seemed that Lohart exuded a cold aura all over his body and did not dare to touch him too much. At this moment, a strong white man stepped on the pile of soil below to gain strength, and then bulged the muscles of his arms. Grasping the handle of the Thor's hammer, Mjolnir gritted his teeth and exerted all his strength to pull it up. Unfortunately, even though he exhausted all his strength and his face turned red from holding back, Muriel didn't even move. Lockhart carefully examined the Thor's hammer, looking at the motionless Meow Rni, sensing it carefully and sighing slightly. Undoubtedly, it is a divine artifact. If it were not for its characteristics that others cannot pull, it would probably be seen by everyone as an ordinary hammer. As a wizard, he didn't feel any breath of energy at all. The mystery of Thor's hammer is evident. Immediately, wait for others to give up. Lohart stood in front of the Thor's hammer, imitating the person in front and pulling upwards with force. Unfortunately, it doesn't move at all. Then extending his wand, lightly tapping the Thor's hammer, he quickly recited a spell. Quickly manifest. After a spell, a faint blue light flickered lightly, but disappeared in an instant. Upon seeing this scene, Lohart's breathing became somewhat rapid. Looking up at the muggles around, frowning slightly, waving his wand and pointing it towards the sky. Confusing the audience. In Lohart's eyes, a transparent wave spread from all around, covering the muggles around. In the eyes of the onlookers, the handsome man in front of them had already left and replaced him with another white man. The action is the same as before, trying to pull out the hammer under his command. At this moment, Lockhart cast magic and cast a layer of illusion. He began to study the Thor's hammer in front of him. Urgently show off. Urgently show off. Urgently show off. A series of 10 manifestation spells fell on the hammer of the thunder god. In an instant, the hammer of Thor burst into a dazzling deep blue light, revealing a large number of mysterious runes that exude a mysterious aura. This made Lockhart, who was observing carefully, his eyes lit up instantly and his breathing became somewhat rapid. Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Confusion Curse. Encounter Colson by chance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Confusion Curse. Encounter Colson by chance. The mysterious rune just now, if Lockhart guessed correctly, should be the unique rune of Asgard. It is also the foundation for their casting of artifacts. Upon seeing this, Lohhatan's heart warmed and he reached out to take out a notebook and feather pen. Just as he was about to transcribe the rune, a notebook and feather pen appeared. I found that the rune of Lune had disappeared. Seeing this, Lockhart was not angry either. 10 more manifestation curses, let the hammer of thunder reappear with the rune of Lune, while it still exists. Quickly copy the rune of Lune into your notebook. This is a rune for making the Thor's hammer. Even if he doesn't understand the meaning of the rune now, he can still estimate its value. If placed in the world of Harry Potter, it could definitely spark a wave of enthusiasm. Because with his limited knowledge alone, he could discover a huge gap between the ancient runes of the Harry Potter world and Harry Potter. Even 2 completely different runes. Even a wizard like Dumbledore would definitely arouse interest in exploration. After all, it is very likely to contain another direction for the development of magic inside. Although the rune of Lune quickly disappeared again before Lohart could finish transcribing it. But with the massive use of the manifestation mantra by Lohart, in the cycle of constantly appearing and disappearing runes of Lune, it was finally completely transcribed. Looking at the notebook in my hand filled with dense runes of Rune. A hint of joy flashed in Lockhart's eyes. Although he couldn't understand the meaning behind the runes, he was able to slightly explore their function by using magic to depict them. Of course, it would be best if a teacher could tell him the meaning of the rune. As soon as Lohart thought of this, Thor, who had well-developed limbs, came to mind. Immediately, shaking his head, he felt that Thor was not as good as the runes, and if it were Loki, there was a possibility. Take a look at Loki, TSK, the appearance of a standard mage. On the other hand, looking left and right, Thor looks like a reckless warrior everywhere. And warriors, when it comes to learning, Lockhart just chuckled. Before he could think deeply, Lohart felt a lot of complaints coming from his ear. What kind of people are you? Why did you drive us away? Yes, this is a public place, why? Sorry, FBI, it involves national security here. Please leave in an orderly manner. Lockhart looked up at the muggle in police uniform coming towards him, especially the slightly bald white man at the front, dressed in a black suit and somewhat chubby. Shaking his head slightly, he was still preparing to study the rune of Lune carefully by comparing it with the hammer of Thor. As a result, I also encountered people from the Divine Shield Bureau. If I guess correctly, the leader was the village chief of the Marvel World Novice Village, Colson. But he's not in a hurry either. He wants to study the hammer of Thor, anytime. A phantom curse goes down, just like Loki in the original plot, who can discover it? As his thoughts turned, Lockhart turned around and walked out along the crowd, while canceling the illusion. Wait a moment, you stop. Lockhart, who was slowly moving forward, suddenly heard a voice emerging from behind and pinched the wand hidden in his sleeve. Turning around, with a puzzled expression on his face, he asked towards the approaching Colson. "Sir, what can I do for you?" A hint of doubt flashed in Colson's eyes, and he was not sure if he was feeling dizzy. "It seems like I haven't seen this man before. With his handsome appearance, I should have some impression on myself." But he couldn't be sure if he remembered correctly, so Colson tentatively asked, "Hello, FBI agent, please show me your valid identification." Upon hearing Colson's puzzled tone, Lockhart calmly took out his magical leather bag that was straddling his waist. Opening it, he handed it to Colson and said calmly, "Okay, sir, take a look. If there's no problem, then I'll leave first." After taking it over, Colson carefully examined it and found that there seemed to be no problem. Ask a nearby special agent from the Divine Shield Bureau to input their ID number on their phone and verify it, but there is still no problem. However, he always felt as if he had missed something, but had no clue. "I can only secretly remember the name on the document. Gidro Lockhart." After pondering the name of Lockhart, Colson handed it to Lockhart with a smile on his face and said gently, "All right, sir, you can leave now. I'm sorry for the inconvenience caused earlier." Lockhart calmly took the magical leather bag handed over by Colson and turned to leave. "Who?" After walking a distance, Lockhart let out a light breath. He just secretly cast a scope confusion spell. The magic leather bag he purchased comes with a small range of confusion spells, and anyone nearby who sees the identification information inside the bag will see the most authentic information in their impression. No matter how they detect it, their identity is real in their cognition. However, just now, Colson asked the agent next to him to conduct a machine inspection, which immediately made Lohart's heart tremble. "You look fine, even the machine display and confusion spell can block the screen." But it's precisely the sound, the confusion spell on the magic leather bag won't block it. Because the producer did not even consider the issue of sound. After all, the technology in the world of Harry Potter is not yet as advanced, and most of it is through the human eye to see the authenticity of documents. So, the producer cast a confusion spell on the leather bag, with a focus on the confusion of the visuals. Make viewers within a certain range believe it to be true. Even if there is a blank document in front of me. So, just in case, Lockhart had to secretly release a confusing spell against the sound. If there is an identity error, the voice of "no one found" can also be blocked. However, he is lucky that there will be no sound prompt when the special agents of the Divine Shield Bureau verify their identity. Nevertheless, Hart is still preparing to return to the world of Harry Potter and create a magical leather bag that can confuse sound and visuals. Marvel World's technology is much more advanced, so he has to be cautious. The next day. "Professor Lockhart, we have been in the small town for the past month. Remember to come to us anytime if you have any questions." Eric stood in the living room, looking at Gidro Lockhart carrying a suitcase, and whispered softly. "Yeah, Professor, remember to come and play with us when you have time." "Yes, Professor, don't forget us." Jane and Daisy also spoke enthusiastically. "Okay, I won't forget. Anyway, it's not far away. You can also come to my rented house to play when you have time. I won't be leaving here in the near future. If anything happens, remember to come to me." Lockhart said gently to Eric and Thor, with a smile on his face. After speaking, carry a suitcase and walk towards the rented house. "Yesterday afternoon, I followed the agent to take a look at the house and felt that the environment was good, so I rented it. I talked to Eric and others tonight. So there is this scene this morning." Eric watched as Lockhart's figure left, with a hint of envy in his eyes. Magic, extraordinary power, staying with Professor Lockhart these days. Fully aware of the charm of magic, gently waving the wand in hand gives life to things and automatically completes corresponding tasks. It's really amazing, breaking his cognition beyond his imagination. However, upon seeing Thor whispering to Jane, Eric sighed. These days, through mutual communication, he also knows Thor's identity. The son of King Odin, Thor, the god of thunder. Although everyone initially thought it was a joke, Thor repeatedly emphasized and revealed many details about Asgard. More importantly, they already have a wizard around them who only appears in fantasy. It has already shattered their cognition. So, gradually believe what Thor said. Result: Eric found that Jane and Thor became more and more enthusiastic as they chatted, especially when discussing the starry sky, often getting bored together. With years of life experience, he couldn't help but let out a sigh. The son of the divine king talks about love with mortals. From mythological legends, which mortal truly achieved good results. Not to mention anything else, one has already lived for thousands of years, and can even live for tens of thousands of years. And the other has a lifespan of less than 100 years. What good results can there be? Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Ancient Runes of Runi. Rune of Lune. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Ancient Runes of Runi. Rune of Lune. In a small villa to the east of the town. In the lobby of the first floor of the villa, there was a mess, scattered with shattered glass, paper, wooden blocks, and some suspected metal objects, among others scattered around the entire living room. It looks as if it has gone through a major battle. But the center of the entire hall is completely clean. At this moment, Lohart stood in the center of the hall, holding a wand and sliding along a strange trajectory in the air. A dark blue light gradually appeared in the air as the wand slid. Quickly, a rune was formed in the air, outlined by blue light. Rune of Lune. Click. 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 At the moment of the formation of runes, subtle lightning suddenly appeared in the air, emitting a crisp sound. At the same time, the rune quietly collapsed, and the thunder suddenly disappeared. Upon seeing this, Lockhart immediately controlled the quill and wrote in his notebook. Result of rune experiment number 23. Drawing complexity. Medium, effect. Summoning thunder and lightning, possessing a small amount of damage. Guessing the meaning. Thunder, induced lightning note. It can be carried by material objects or sketched out of thin air, and can be used for studying spells. After recording the information related to Rune 23, Lockhart's eyes lit up with exploration. Since moving into the new house yesterday, he has been reading books and practicing spells regularly every day. It's about constantly studying the previously recorded runes of Rune. In 2 days, a large amount of magical materials have been consumed, and 23 runes have been explored, accounting for nearly 1/5 of the total. Most of these 23 runes require a material carrier, such as rune number 9, which has a simple effect of being sturdy. Sketching out of thin air, unable to discern the effect. But he tried to carve on a piece of Polonia wood and instantly found that the copper wood was as hard as steel. There are also some runes that can be drawn out of thin air to produce certain effects. Although the performance is very weak, it is enough to indicate that this type of rune can definitely be used for the development of spells. Among the 23 runes that have been explored, 5 of them are very mysterious. Whether it is sketching or portraying on material carriers, its effect has not been found. I'm afraid this requires finding a professional Asgard mage to understand, or returning to the world of Harry Potter to explore and study with specialized ancient masters like Nevin. Based on his current understanding of runes, Lockhart believed that runes are a shortcut to understanding the essence of magic. Whether you are a professional alchemist or not, mastering a large number of runes will be of great help in studying magic and improving your level of magic. After temporarily naming Rune 23 as Thunder, Lockhart looked at the somewhat messy living room. Swipe your wand lightly, activate your magic, and out of nowhere, follow a wonderful trajectory to outline a simple light blue rune. Rune of Rune number 19. Clean. Runes quietly appeared, emitting a faint blue light that enveloped the entire hall. Quickly, the stains in the hall disappeared as if they were brand new. However, the broken glass, shredded paper, and so on are still exposed on the ground without any movement, just much cleaner than before. Upon seeing this, Lohart let out a light sigh, waved his wand lightly, and spoke at an extremely fast pace towards the hall, "Restore to the original state." Just as the words fell, a strange wave emanated from the top of the wand, enveloping the entire hall. Immediately after, the shattered glass, scattered wooden blocks, and shattered metal in the hall automatically floated up. As if going against the current of time, all broken objects reverse their original trajectory and return to their original state. Neat glass, slender wooden strips, bronze-colored metal, only magical materials are stacked together, without returning to their original state. In a moment, the entire hall was restored to the appearance that Lohart had just moved in. Neat, clean. Although he doesn't have much involvement in Asgard's magic. But with research on runes and knowledge of the mythological stories of Asgard, he speculates that Asgard's magic may not be as agile as the magic of Harry Potter's world. Asgard's magic is likely to focus on combat. The magic of the Harry Potter world is more comprehensive and flexible. Because emotions and willpower are the core traits of Harry Potter's world magic, therefore emphasizing control more. More importantly, the Harry Potter world has a pure wizarding world, focused solely on the field of magic for thousands of years. This extends to many fields such as life, combat, healing, alchemy, and more. The Asgard system is very mixed, with warriors, magicians, and even technology, gods, and so on. Too complex, but not pure, will only focus on one aspect. However, this is only speculation. After all, he did not actually come into contact with the wizards of Asgard. At night. At this moment, Lohart is reviewing the new spells and knowledge he has recently encountered on his living room desk. Staring at the pristine white paper, exuding a calm contemplation, soon, as if something had come to mind, he gently waved his hand. A large amount of handwriting is revealed as the feather pen slides continuously. In no time, the handwriting had already covered a whole piece of white paper, and then it automatically flipped over to write on the next page of white paper. I wrote a full 7 pages before finishing. Finally, Lockhart's automatic pen summarized. We should be good at using runes, they are our eyes that look up to truth, allowing us to discover the ray of truth in the confused darkness. After finishing writing, review it again, ponder for a while, make some modifications, and then turn to the next page. Another blank piece of paper, Lockhart wrote at the top. On the differences and commonalities between ancient runes and runes. After writing the title, this time, Lockhart pondered for a longer time, as if hesitating about which perspective to elaborate from. Suddenly a rapid sound of footsteps gradually sounded. Following that bang. 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 A more urgent knocking sounded at the door. Thinking, Lohart frowned slightly as he didn't like to be disturbed while thinking. However, Lockhart tapped his middle finger lightly on the table, causing a transparent ripple to spread outwards, and then the image outside came to mind. This is a simple exploration spell he created in combination with Rune of Rune. It is easy to explore the surrounding environment without any extraordinary interference. Seeing the image in his mind, a hint of surprise flashed in Lockhart's eyes. Surprisingly, the person who came is Eric, Jane, Daisy. It's so late, what can happen? There is still some anxiety on the face. The brain's thoughts flickered, and a sudden expression appeared in the eyes. That's right, in the evening, there's nothing else that worries them except for that matter. So he lightly waved his wand, controlled the door to open, and at the same time put away the notebook on the desk. Facing the 3 people who walked in, he calmly asked, Eric, what's so urgent about you 3? Before Eric Selvig could speak, Jane anxiously said, Professor Lockhart, it's not good. Thor said he wanted to retrieve his Myrnil, but he was caught. You're a magician, there must be a way to save him, right? Upon hearing Jane's somewhat anxious tone, Lockhart whispered, All right, Jane, I probably know what's going on. Let's set off first, while you explain to me in detail. What exactly happened? As he spoke, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and the clothes hanging on the hanger floated towards Lockhart. He reached out slightly and put them on. Then, walking towards the door, Jian calmed down and forced herself to explain the whole story in a gentle tone as she walked. Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Are you treating the people of our Divine Shield Bureau as idiots in Chapter 9? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Are you treating the people of our Divine Shield Bureau as idiots in Chapter 9? On the streets of the small town, a black van is speeding towards the east. In the van, Jian spoke at lightning speed to explain the entire process to Lohart sitting in front. Lohart nodded slightly as he listened, as if pondering. After Jane finished speaking, Lohart calmly looked at the crowd and said in a deep voice, "All right, I know the whole thing now. The current situation is. Thor was caught, you want to save him, right?" Upon hearing what Lockhart had said, Jane nodded heavily. Eric next to him also said, "Yes, Professor Lockhart, after all, Thor has suddenly helped us a lot these days." After hearing Eric's reply, Lockhart's gaze was somewhat strange. "Are you sure is he helping you or is he helping Jane?" "Since you want to save Thor," said Lockhart in a low voice, as his thoughts turned and he didn't think much, "tell me about your rescue plan and what I need to do. If you need my help, I'll do my best." Upon hearing this, Eric smiled awkwardly and hesitated. "Don't tell me, you haven't even done a rescue plan," said Lockhart in a somewhat peculiar tone after seeing it. "Are you sure that you're going to save someone, not just yourself?" Upon hearing this, Eric quickly said, No, Professor Lockhart. We made a fake ID for Thor and wanted to see if we could rescue him. However, At this point, Eric hesitated even more and said hesitantly, "We're worried that there might be an accident in between, so we're inviting you over." Upon hearing this, Lockhart pondered for a moment. "Okay, it's me who values them high." Still following the same routine as the original plot, he thought that after influencing the plot and having his own wizard sneak in, what would be the new ideas? This plan, hey. It's like a bamboo sieve carrying water. There are plenty of leaks. If it weren't for Colson's plan to use Thor as bait, the three of you would be laughing right away. However, as soon as the final result turned out to be good, Lockhart was not prepared to disrupt the plan. Otherwise, if it were him, he would simply cast a phantom spell, then a powerful set of confusion spells, and finally give them a set of forgetting spells. In this way, even if you walk out directly with Thor, no one will notice. However, when it comes to the plan ahead. "Alright, I know what you're worried about," said Lockhart with a smile. "Don't worry, even if you take out a blank piece of paper, I can make them believe it." After hearing Lockhart's answer, Jane was immediately overjoyed and thanked him. "Thank you, Professor Lockhart." Smiles also appeared on the faces of Eric and Daisy next to them. As if with the last guarantee, Eric slammed on the gas pedal, increased his speed, and ran towards the shield station at the Myrnir base. Divine Shield Bureau Simple Base. The entire base is built around Myrnir, with a large number of SHID agents distributed around and patrolling cautiously. They were just scolded severely by their own superiors, and despite being stopped by a group of people, they were even punched through the base with bare hands. It can be called a fighter jet in shame. At this moment, Colson looked at Thor, who was silent and emotionally low in front of him, and his originally gentle face occasionally showed a hint of vigilance. This person, in just a few minutes, had no use for any weapons, and with just a pair of fists, he had beaten their trained agents for many years. With only limited observation, it can be found that the opponent has extremely rich combat experience, and it can be determined that the number of battles the opponent has participated in is definitely far beyond ordinary people's imagination, and it is very likely that they are professional mercenaries. However, no matter how you ask, the other party always remains silent. And for some reason, Colson could clearly sense the other person exuding a sense of disappointment and despair. It seems like a little bird returning home at an unknown time, constantly lamenting. Lying trough. It's just being caught, not killing your whole family. Even if I killed your whole family, it shouldn't be this reaction. He has seen many arrested prisoners, he has never seen such a strange prisoner before. At this moment, suddenly, a special agent from the Divine Shield Bureau approached him and whispered in his ear. "Sir, someone wants to take away the prisoner who invaded our base. They said this was their companion, saying they got drunk and accidentally broke into the camp." Upon hearing this, Colson's face showed a funny expression. This excuse, isn't it too perfunctory? Are you treating the people from their Divine Shield Bureau like idiots? Your companions can penetrate the camp formed by hundreds of people in our Divine Shield Bureau with just a drink. What kind of wine? So powerful, our Divine Shield Bureau also needs to order a box. However, this is also an opportunity. Colson looked down at Thor, who remained silent, with a hint of contemplation in his eyes. Then, he walked outside with the agent beside him, leaving Thor alone in the interrogation room. "Are you sure his name is Donald Black?" Colson walked to the entrance of the campsite and scanned the two men in front of him. His gaze paused for a moment on Lockhart, and then he asked Eric Selvig, who was leading the slightly elderly middle-aged man. "Of course, you can also call him Dr. Donald Black. Your partner is really dangerous, Dr. Selvig. Do you know that? He walked through our entire camp alone. Do you have any explanation? Oh, my God, after you stole all our research materials, he was extremely anxious. It was his lifelong effort, and that's all." Faced with Colson's obvious questioning tone, Eric complained somewhat. Later on, every man would explode in such a situation, and he couldn't hold back the fire in his heart. He kept drinking, and we couldn't persuade him no matter how hard we tried. He ran over while we weren't paying attention. Upon hearing Eric's complaining tone, Colson remained expressionless and asked with a hint of seriousness in his faint tone, "This is not enough to prove that he was able to break into our camp. Doping, look at his strong body. After drinking it, he burst in with his brute force." Upon hearing Eric's explanation, Colson's expression remained unchanged, but Lockhart still noticed a hint of silence in his gaze. Immediately, Colson didn't ask any more questions and waved to the nearby agent, gesturing to check his identity. At this moment, upon seeing the agent in action, Lohart gently waved his wand hidden at his sleeve and said, "Confuse the audience. Go down with a powerful confusion curse." Suddenly, in the eyes of the agents, the blood-red text, "Information Forgery," on the screen transformed into the green text reads, "The information is correct." The agent's eyes showed a hint of surprise and quickly called out to Colson next to him. Colson turned his head to look at the green text on the screen that indicated the correct information, with a hint of seriousness in his eyes. It seems the other party's information work was done quite well, and even the Federal Citizen Information Database could be successfully hacked. As soon as he thought of this, Colson immediately turned his head and looked at the handsome blonde man across from him. Gidro Lockhart. The name came to mind. Colson pondered. It seemed my previous feelings may have been correct, and the other party is likely to have problems. Even identity information is forged. After not thinking for long, Colson followed the original plan and waved his hand directly, indicating that Eric could go in and take Thor away. Eric heard Colson agree to their request, looked surprised, followed the lead agent, and quickly entered the camp. Lockhart followed closely behind. Suddenly, Colson looked at the last figure of Lockhart and asked, "Sir, I remember you. Your name is Gidro Lockhart, right?" Upon hearing the sound coming from behind, Lockhart turned around, nodded, and said calmly, "Yes, my name is Gidro Lockhart. You can also call me Professor Lockhart." After speaking, he followed Eric towards the interrogation room where Thor was located. During the walk, Eric had some doubts about what Colson had just said. Lohart explained briefly but didn't say much. Quickly, Eric and Lockhart successfully took Thor out of the camp and back into their own van. Inside the black van, there were Jane and Daisy who had been waiting for a long time. Please bookmark. Requesting recommended tickets. Seeking investment. Please follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Thor's rising recognition. Received station short message. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Thor's rising recognition. Received station short, seeking investment. Thor, what's wrong with you? I feel like your mood is very low. Did something happen to you? It's okay, speak up and let's face it together. Yes, we are a team, and I believe that no matter how difficult the problem is, we can solve it together. In the black van, Jane looked at Thor, who was in a low mood, silent, and somewhat pale. She quickly comforted him, and Daisy beside her also agreed. Lockhart, who was just ahead, also turned his head slightly and stared at the silent Thor. He naturally knows the reason, isn't it that Loki deceived him? But it's not convenient for him to get involved in these things. His goal is simple. To increase recognition and conduct a reputation lottery. Faced with Jane and Daisy's comforting words, Thor's face slightly regained its color and he said in a low voice, "It's nothing, maybe. I'm going to stay on Earth forever." After hearing this, Jane took a soft breath and thought something big had happened. As a result, that's all. It seems like a good thing. However, looking down at Thor, he quickly comforted and said, "Don't worry, I will always be with you." Then, Jane began to constantly comfort Thor and provide psychological counseling, and soon Thor's condition slowly recovered. It seems the power of love is sometimes no less than magic. Lockhart joked to himself. Well, the power of love, I heard Dumbledore has been studying it. Maybe this is true. Eric, who was driving, heard what Thor had just said and then heard Jane constantly comforting Thor's words. Slightly silent, more focused on driving, without saying a word more. Go back to the house rented by Eric and the three of them. After turning on the lights, Lohart waved his wand lightly and soon, 5 glasses were placed on the table across from the sofa. At the same time, it was also filled with water and orange juice. After seeing it, the 4 of them sat naturally on the sofa. Daisy looked at Lockhart with envy and said, "Professor Lockhart, your magic is really useful. I really want to learn. If I could just wave it lightly and all the food would be ready, how wonderful it would be." Upon hearing Daisy's envious tone, Lockhart waved his hand and said helplessly, "Teaching Muggles magic has been a long-standing challenge in our wizarding world. Many powerful wizards have been studying it, and even many evil experiments have emerged, but none have yielded results. I have no choice." Then Lockhart began to shift the topic and asked Thor, "Thor just heard you say you want to stay on Earth. Do you have any plans? If there are any, I can also provide some favorable suggestions on my end." Upon hearing Lohart's question, Thor's eyes flashed with confusion. He had just heard the news like a bolt from the blue and had no other thoughts at all. Seeing Thor without saying a word, Lohart knew that he was afraid Thor had not made any plans yet, so he continued to shift the topic and said, "Let's not talk about this matter for now. Maybe you need time to think. By the way, can you tell me about Asgard's magic? You know, as wizards, we have always been very interested in magic, even if it's just an introduction." Upon hearing the Lockhart question, Jane, Daisy, and Eric next to them eagerly turned their gaze to Thor. I have only heard Lockhart talk about the magic of the wizarding world before, and I have never heard Thor talk about the magic of Asgard. As if sensing the anticipation in everyone's eyes, Thor thought for a moment and slowly introduced, "I don't have a deep understanding of magic research. My younger brother Loki specializes in practicing magic, and at the same time, my mother, Princess Freyja, also practices magic. However, when I was a child, our magic teacher told us that Asgard's magic is based on Rune of Rune. So, Lohart listened attentively to all the content of Thor's Asgard magic. He secretly began to use magic to deepen his memory of this period. Convenient for later memory retrieval, listen again. After Thor introduced Asgard's magic, Lockhart also began to share some of his memorable adventure experiences. Jane, Daisy, and Eric slowly shared some interesting or mysterious things they had encountered before. The previously dull atmosphere quickly became lively. With Lockhart's enthusiasm, he cast his magic and cooked a delicious late-night snack for everyone. The atmosphere has become more lively. After a long time, it was already late at night when I saw the bright moon outside, and a hint of drowsiness rose in the eyes of Eric and others. Lockhart stood up and said with a smile, "All right, that's all for today. Everyone rest well, let's continue our conversation tomorrow if we have the opportunity." As he spoke, he blinked at Thor and jokingly said, "I still have many doubts about Asgard's magic, and I need you to answer them for me, Thor." Upon hearing this, Thor patted his chest and said arrogantly, "Okay, Lohart, you're my friend. Feel free to ask any questions. As long as I understand, I will not be stingy." Upon hearing this, Lockhart also smiled and stood up. Then reaching out his hand, he took out a space bag hanging around his waist and handed it to Thor, explaining, "This is a bag made with the space extension curse, commonly known as a space bag. It has a considerable amount of space inside, which I have specially designed, and can also be used by ordinary muggles. I heard you say before that you want to stay on Earth all the time. I think life comes at a cost, and I don't have much currency for Earth here. However, I have a lot of gold, and there is some gold in this bag that you can use first." As he spoke, seeing Thor's expression of wanting to refuse, Lockhart quickly waved his hand and continued, "Thor, don't refuse yet. You know, for people like us, gold is not really a very valuable thing. Besides, the magic knowledge you shared with me before is very valuable to me, and this can be considered as some of my rewards. If you don't feel good, don't refuse when I ask you some questions about Asgard magic later." As he spoke, Lohart playfully blinked his eyes, as if hinting at something. Upon hearing what Lockhart had said, Thor clenched the space bag tightly in his hand, nodded, and gratefully said, "All right, Lockhart, if you can help, I will definitely help." Thor knew that although Lockhart said it was a reward, in reality, he was helping himself. The magic knowledge he talked about was just a brief introduction, because he didn't have much knowledge about magic research either. To be honest, the value is not significant. And Lockhart also gave himself the universal gold on Earth, for the sake of their friendship. In the past few days living on Earth, he also knows the value of gold and the importance of rice. At this moment, he truly regarded Lockhart as his friend. And Lockhart waved, indicating that everyone didn't need to give it away, and walked straight towards the door. When I walked out the door with my back to everyone, it was as if I heard a system beep and a smile on my face. After returning to the rented house, Lohart sat at his desk, lightly calling out the system and focusing his gaze on the character recognition page. Character recognition. Thor Odinson, 70 out of 100. I have received the station message today and am currently following the process to change the status. You can invest in advance to earn some starting coins, collect wool, and seek recommended tickets. End of this chapter.